Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. Excited to have a guest from clear on the other side of the world. My good friend Jeff Hittner is joining me on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian.
Awesome. Gosh, I don't know how we came across each other, but we just somehow crossed paths through social media world, I guess, and here we are. Y- we're both in the dad space. We're
Hmm.
both doing dad things, and my boys are probably a little bit farther along than your kids, because they're both grown and out of the house. One of them's married and all that.
Wow.
Yeah. But let's do this. Before we get started, let's hear a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. I am a dad to two amazing boys. They are 9 and about to be 6 years old, and they are the lights of my life. And my story into becoming a dad is a bit different. So my entire life, I always knew I wanted to be a dad. Like I remember it since high school. And lo and behold, my wife and I were trying to have a child and wasn't working. And after a very long, painful process, we discovered that I wasn't able to have biological children. And so, this was probably maybe 11 or 12 years ago now. And so I realized that if I wanted to be a dad, I needed to change my definition of something really foundational, which was that fatherhood meant blood. And of course, as I've said, I've got two incredible children. And so I was able to change my mindset on that. And I have an amazing family. And part of that journey for me was realizing that if I could change my mindset about something as foundational as fatherhood, then we can change our mindset about anything. And it really propelled me into a much deeper focus of the work I do. I'm a leadership expert and an executive coach, and I help people with transformation. And as that journey continued around fatherhood, as you would imagine, I was pretty focused on the nurture aspect of fatherhood since I can't contribute to the nature aspect of fatherhood. And I was having problems. Like it was hard. I would be triggered a lot. My oldest, well, both of my kids had epic long temper tantrums, and I could not stay in the game longer than 30 seconds or a minute before losing it myself. And I just started down this journey of a lot of introspection and therapy to really understand what I needed to grow as a dad. And about 2 years into that, I had a client, my biggest client, and he kind of rolled off. And I had some space in my work, and I was, as one does, going for a walk on the beach, and I just started thinking this question in my head, which was, man, I coach all these executives, men and women, but when I ask the men like what their goals and their objectives are around their career, around their companies. They're so crisp. They know exactly what it is. And when I ask
Mhm.
them what their goals are around fatherhood and around their family, they're bumbling, like they don't know.
Mhm.
And I got really curious about this. And I decided I was going to plead my ignorance and I was going to interview 50 what I called ambitious dads. So dads that were trying to build strong careers for themselves and really be incredible fathers at home. And I wanted to figure out what was going on. And I got to maybe interview number 4 and was like, holy shit, I am learning so much. I need to start writing about this. So I started a blog, The Ambitious Dads, on Substack. And I've also since started a podcast, The Ambitious Dads Podcast. And I've really approached it from the same way I approach my work, which is kind of from a thought leadership perspective. So I've really dug into all these gaps that I've discovered that a lot of us have as dads, trying to father in ways that are, for the most part, pretty different than the way our fathers raised us. And we don't have the role models, and we're not in enough conversation with other dads. That's why I love being on sh your show. I love the work that you do, and it's one of the reasons I do the work I do. We feel pretty isolated as dads. We go down a shame spiral a lot when we fail at the thing that we care most about. Um, so our confidence isn't great as a dad. There's just so many things that have bubbled up through this work. And of course, it is the most selfish work I've done because every day, every conversation, I feel like it's made me a better dad, which is like, how beautiful is that, right? Like to kind of move yourself into the work that makes you feel like you're a better person for it. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Your story is very similar to mine in that, you know, I kind of went down this path where, my boys were older. I had been involved in their lives, and I attribute that or took that role on full force because I have, I have parents that, love me and have raised me and all that, but they were hardly in my life growing up,
Mm,
meaning they were they had to work a lot to put food on the table. We didn't have a whole lot of money, and so they were constantly working, sometimes two and three jobs at a time, just to provide for I have a sister, for the two of us, and the things that I did in my life, whether it was school events, open houses, field trips, sporting events that I participated in. My parents were hardly there. I used to ride to practices with my friends' parents because my parents just couldn't go because they
mhm,
were working. And I knew back then, like you, knowing that you wanted to be a dad, I knew back then that when I was a dad, that I was not going to be that way. And
mhm,
so when I raised my boys, my wife and I raised our boys, I was involved in everything that it did. I went on all the field trips. I went to the open houses. I went to the parent teacher conferences. I coached every single one of their teams that they participated in all the way up through high school. So I did all those things. And then I got to this point where my older son was in college, my younger son was a senior in high school, about to graduate. And I thought, he's about to go off to college like his older brother. And then what do I do? I
mhm,
I, I hit this, I kind of hit, it's funny, it almost put me into this depression. Like all I knew was being a dad, and here it is. I've raised these boys, they're about to fly the nest, and now what am I supposed to do? And that's when somebody said, you should really start a podcast for other dads and help them along their journey, because there's a lot of dads out there that are struggling, that don't know how to be that involved dad enough, and still be the provider. And that's one thing that I did in my life. I've been very successful in corporate America and still was able to participate and be there for my boys every chance that they got, every chance that I had. And I know that when I one day when I'm on my deathbed about to go meet my heavenly Father, I know if my boys were asked, tell me something about your dad, that they would say he was always there for us.
mm,
And that's something that I hold dear to my heart. And now my boys being older, my younger son just got married 2 weeks ago. And so now I have a daughter-in-law who I call my daughter. And it's amazing to me to see the transformation in them, but also to see the transformation of me, because now I'm not so much I'm a dad, but now I consider them two of my best friends. My boys are two
mhm.
of my best friends. We go golfing together when we have a chance. My older son lives in Arizona, but we go out there frequently and visit he and his girlfriend, and it's just been an amazing journey. And now I'm like a guidance counselor. Now when they need advice into this adult world, especially my younger son being married now, needs advice. He asks me advice. I give it to him, and then he can take it or leave it because he's a grown adult. He can do
Yeah.
how he chooses. So Excuse me. But when I talk to other dads, you're right. They're so dialed in on their businesses, on their, on their job because they feel like they have to be that provider for the family, and they have to work these 80-hour weeks in order to make things come together for their family, but yet they're missing out on all the important stuff. This little things that may seem little to them, but are not little to their kids. And I like to use the example that, maybe a basketball game that you can't go to because you have a business meeting that you need to attend to. And it's the first time that your son shoots a three-pointer and makes it, and you're not there to witness it. And when your son looks up in the stands, he looks up in the stands. He doesn't care about any of the other people that are in the stands. He's looking for his family. And when he doesn't see him there, that that is how I felt as a boy. I would look up in those stands and not see my family there. And that kind of stuff hits me hard. And that's why I went on this journey of, doing the podcast and stuff. And, my podcast has been going almost 7 years now, and it's been an interesting journey. I've learned a lot, and it's funny talking to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dads, and I've coached a ton of dads myself, talking to them, I and hearing some of the things that they tell me about their journey being a dad, and I go, dang, why didn't I do that as a dad? That was there's so many things that I learned now that I go, man, if I could just go back in time, I would do things a little bit different. I would tweak this and I would tweak that. But I think I did pretty good, as far as being a dad goes. I think I did pretty good.
Awesome.
But so you're coaching dads, you're executive coach. I know that you help dads. I know that dads really, like we just talked about, they chase this, I guess, external success first, right? And then but they chase this external success first, but how can they redefine true success? How do they redefine what that really looks like?
Well, I mean, success, defining success is a really kind of challenging and very critical topic right now. Not just around dads, but around what we are defining it as for our children, right? So there's this external definition of success, but there's also this reality that we have absolutely zero idea what the market and world is going to look like 10
Right.
years from now, 5 years from now, because of AI. And to be defining success for our children, in the form of career, in the form of outcomes, as opposed to defining it around values, around kind of like capabilities. When I talk about capabilities, what I mean is more like resilience, entrepreneurial mindset, self-efficacy, all of these things. So this is a real critical and evolving topic, and it's not just about the definition of success that dad has for themselves, but what they want to put at the feet of their kids. And that's tough because culturally we have a very um, blunt definition of success. We see it in TV, we see it in movies, we see it on Instagram and everywhere. And it goes back to another term you raised too, which is this idea of a provider, right? And a lot of the dads that I work with, so I run these programs. I run a program called the Founding Fathers Program, where we have 25 dads at a time, and we work over 12 weeks virtually to develop something called your fatherhood philosophy. And what that is really this idea that to be a great there's the difference between a good dad and a great dad is pretty simple. A good dad is someone who is present. A great dad is someone who fathers with intention. And that means that they see the forest through the trees. They know, like as I was just mentioning, they have an idea of the definition of success they want to bring to their kids. And they've thought about it. They've thought through it. They have an idea of what values they want to externalize with their kids. And so this is the type of stuff that's really important as we're thinking differently as dads and how to raise our kids. And when we go to what does it mean to be a provider, a lot of the dads in my program now, they're talking about a provider as not just providing economically, but also providing emotionally. So the provider emotionally, socially, as well as economically. So they're changing the definition of provider, they're changing the definition of success. And they're really saying, like, to be a great dad, it's not just about being present. It's about, like, in particular, men do see the world differently than their counterparts, than their wives or their co-parents. And one of the things we see is our ability to kind of look into the future and plan out in a lot of different ways. And this idea that we can do that with intention, knowing there's so much uncertainty out there, the gift we can bring our kids by thinking about that differently and preparing them in a different way is huge because our schools aren't doing it at quite the speed we need them to be. And honestly, it's pretty hard when everything changes on a dime. So anyway, these are the things that have become really topical for the dads that I speak to, and the ones that I work with.
Yeah. And I think about, balancing all of that. And when I think about balancing, I think about how do we balance as dads? How do we balance not only that that success as far as our external success outside the home, but also balance the time inside the home? How have you, in the dads that you've talked to, how have you found that they have been able to balance, or maybe struggled at it, and what advice have you given them?
Yeah, I mean, it's the number one challenge that all the dads talk about. It's
Mhm.
work-life balance, right? How am I a great leader, employer, corporate employee, whatever at work? How am I also a great dad at home? How am I also a great partner if I'm married? How am I great to myself and taking care of myself? The short answer is there is no silver bullet. There's no magic way to do that. What's interesting is to draw on all the moms and their experiences because moms have been going through that same challenge for much longer than we have. Um, and they don't have a solution either. But you know what they do? They talk to each other.
Mm,
And they use that conversation and that ability to like just talk about these challenges of, man, I want to be doing this and this and this and taking care of this person and myself and my job. And they're having these conversations, and that's something that we can do a whole hell of a lot more that can really start to have an impact on this work-life balance, not because it's going to provide an answer for you, but because it's going to provide you several avenues for kind of talking through the difficult seasons. And that's what it is. We have difficult seasons. There are some seasons where we have to focus more on work, and there are some seasons where we have to and want to focus more on our kids and our families. And those are going to come and go all the time. There is no perfect balance. And so
mhm.
having those conversations to get through those rougher seasons are the things that are going to keep us in better spirits.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's no perfect balance. And one of the things that I've told my dads when I've had dads that I've coached and they've asked me that, how do I get this work-life balance to be, basically equal, like where I'm able to provide for my family, giving everything I can to my job or to my career or to my business, but also give everything I can to my family. And I tell them, there's no such thing as balance. You can't balance both of those things because here's the thing. When you're focused on one thing, you should be focused on that one thing. And when you're focused on, let's say you're focused on your business. When you're focused on your business, you're forgetting all about what's going on at home. You're forgetting about what the things that are going on with your family. When you're focused on your family, you shouldn't be thinking about things at work. You should be focused on your family. So the actual balancing is nearly impossible. What is possible though is time management, and that's one of the things that I tell my dads
Mhm.
that they need to structure is time management. When I was in corporate America and the things that I was doing in corporate America, when I was coaching my boys in sports, there were times, many times, where I had to leave my office early, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, to go coach their games. But in order for me to do that and put in a full day at the office where I was giving 100% to the company, I was going in at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I was the guy that was at the office 4 o'clock in the morning, putting in the time. I actually kind of liked it because I was getting there was no distractions. But I could focus and I could give 100% of my time to my job when I was there. And then I could leave at 2 o'clock knowing I gave everything I could to my company. Now it's my turn to give everything I can to my family, to my boys. And so it really comes down to that time management, and it's a struggle, but it's not impossible. And I can say that because I've done it. So it's not impossible. You just have to figure out what that time management looks like for you. How have you personally, Jeff? How have you managed your time when it comes to not only your executive coaching career, but also your family?
I mean, I have a couple of outlier answers. I mean, one is I'm an entrepreneur, so I define my own schedule, right? And I did a lot of the hard work to become an entrepreneur, a lot of the failure, a lot of the no income before my first son was born. So that was one big piece. And the other, which I've written about a lot, is I moved my family to Spain. So my youngest was born during the worst of the early pandemic in 2020 in New York City, and life was really tough there. I had a toddler and a newborn, and no one to help us because it was bad COVID at that time. And our next door neighbors, who literally shared a wall with us, were from Valencia, and they decided to move back and convinced us to join them on the adventure. And life is slower here. And it feels like 2 days in one because, I work typically on East Coast time. So from when I wake up in the morning until like 2 in the afternoon, like I have like an extra day. And when my youngest was really young and wasn't in school yet, I could be a full-time dad for like, that's basically 6 hours straight in the morning, sometimes longer when he was getting up really early. Then I would shift to work mode from like 2 until say 6 or 8, and then back into dad mode. And it was like, wow, it's like I've figured out how to have 2 days in one, and it was fantastic. And the other thing here in Spain, as in just about every developed country with the exception of the United States, is that school goes till 5. So the school day is the work day. And so, now I've got that covered because both my kids are in school and I can get my work done then too. And then again, I can be a dad when the school bus drops them off. Um, and that's really one of the main reasons we came here, is so that we could sort of slow down, and we could experience, 70% of us Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So
Mhm.
it's no doubt that, to say like I need to provide first is all consuming for so many of us. Um, it is not for me, but I still believe that there is a way to have my family live the type of life that for me was important when I talked about like living a life of intention. And so that's what we're doing here. And so my kids are bilingual. When my son learned about the Mona Lisa in school, I was like, let's just go see it. and we did a long weekend trip, and I get to do those sorts of things with my kids now. So it's pretty awesome.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's neat to make that kind of transition. Especially, your boys being younger.
Yeah.
It's easier for them being younger because they don't, they haven't really got their roots kind of set in where you guys are living. And so I see, families that maybe try to do those types of moves when their kids are in junior high or high school, or and those are harder to do because their kids' roots are already kind of grounded and set. So for you
That's
to do
totally true because there was no emotional stress from us about like them leaving their friends or
right,
them, right? We had the stress because we were trying to figure out another language and like figure out the school system and all that. But as far as that piece, you're right. As they get older, you have to deal with that. Although more than anything, as you know, like kids are so resilient, they will adapt. We just have to really know with intention, like what we are building with them.
yeah,
And yeah.
that's awesome. I wanted to ask you this, how do you challenge dads to understand that presence, emotional leadership, and connection are just as valuable as income?
Um, how do I? Well, um, I think it comes a couple ways. The thing that popped into my head first was, you know, I remember when I had my diagnosis that I wasn't going to be able to have biological kids, and we're going through a pretty long mourning process for that. I remember, like, again, the theme here, sitting on the beach. I remember being on the beach and just crying my eyes out, thinking, I'm gonna have children someday, and I've already fucked them up. And what I meant by that was like someday they were going to be 13 or 14 and having their teenage identity crisis, and then they were going to have to deal with this whole different like story of who their dad is and what it means and nature and nurture and all this stuff. Um, and I realized a little bit then, but a lot more over these last several years, that was like the biggest gift I ever could have received, which was
Mm,
basically realizing that I was imperfect as a dad before I even had him. And I needed to grow into that reality sooner than most. And I think that's the biggest thing that when I'm in conversation with dads, I just noticed there's so much guilt, which way too often turns into shame. And men and shame are a very dangerous combination,
right.
right? And it's stemming from this fact that they love these little beings more than anything they could have ever imagined. And it kills them to screw up, and it kills them not to be like everything they know they want to be. And so they feel it. And it's connecting with that set of feelings, be it guilt, be it shame, be it just like curiosity, like, how do I do this better? And I really don't know where to start. And when we get into these conversations and the conversations about the fears that we have as dads, it becomes pretty obvious where we want to focus our time. And it's not on the money. It is on how do we do this emotional work? How do we do it on ourselves? And how do we do it with our kids? So we can feel exactly what you talked about, Bryan, at the beginning, like this immense pride at like being there for them, watching them grow up, and knowing that, when we're 80, we're not going to have any regrets about, what we prioritized in terms of our time. And it's really just dealing with all of those emotions. I think when we start to highlight them in a way that feels safe, these dads really light up and recognize what they want, where they want their energy to be focused, and that it's not on the financial provision if possible.
Yeah. Regrets. That's a big one because I know dads now that are seeing their kids grown and already having regrets. Why wasn't I there enough? Why didn't I go to this? Why didn't I, uh, little things like there's meetings that I could have postponed or rescheduled so I could have been there for my kids. And yeah, there's that gosh, it saddens me to see dads that struggle with that, knowing that they have regrets already. And I know that when I'm up there, and I know when I look back on my life as far as being a dad goes, um, I may have made mistakes. I may have, messed up. I know I've messed up quite a few times. I still mess up to this day, but I don't have any regrets.
Yeah,
And that's one thing that I want to be able to do is to be able to say, hey, I had no regrets in how I raised my boys. And
100%.
it's it would be great if all dads could have that kind of feeling,
Yeah.
because it is an amazing feeling.
And it's funny, and regret and mistakes are two very different things, right? I
Right.
mean, I'm making mistakes all the time. Tonight at dinner, I try to do these gratitudes with my kids at dinner, because there's a lot of, again, psychology research that says if our kids get good at and consistent doing gratitudes, it actually builds a lot of positive psychology and resilience for them so that they're always looking for the good in things, not like what's missing. Anyway, I decided to add to it this idea of like, what big emotion did you feel today? And my oldest was like, happy. And I was like, well, you mentioned that yesterday. Any other emotions? He was like, no. And I was like, well, weren't you just crying a couple minutes ago? And he was like, frustration. I was like, okay. And so I started asking him about it, like, because again, this is me trying to teach him about his emotions. And I'm trying to get him to describe what frustration feels like physically. And he is getting really pissed at me because he's like, it doesn't feel like anything. You're just making me so mad. And I'm super calm, being like, well, what is the feeling in there? Like, what is that? Like, do you feel something in your body? And he's just like, shut up, shut up. And he's just like getting madder and madder. And I'm like, okay, this is not working. Like, this is a total mess up. Like, we didn't need to do this to get into like a conversation around like his different emotions. And yeah, it took an extra 5 minutes to calm him down. And in my head, I was like, I just totally effed up that one. But whatever, like that's the difference between that and regret. That's not regret. That's like, well, I'm proud that I'm trying to figure something out around emotions. And I do many other things, but that one I will not do. And his younger brother was sitting there just looking at us at the dinner table, like I am not doing this afterwards. So yeah, I fuck up all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I still do. My boys are, like I said, my boys are grown men, and I still make mistakes, and I still got to go to them. It's one of the things that I learned being a dad, and for you dads out there, it's one of the things it's one of the toughest things, hardest things that we have to learn is how to be able to go to our boys or go to our kids and say, I messed up, instead of just standing your ground and like, my way or the highway. I mean, that's kind of how we grew up, right? It was like my way or the highway. That's all it is. But for me, I had to learn that. My boys were little, uh, I took from my parents and went, okay, this is like, I'm setting the rules. This is how it's going to be. You're going to listen to me.
Yeah,
This is now there are exceptions to that. Listen, it's my way or the highway, meaning you don't want your kid running out in the middle of the road if there's a car coming. So yeah, you're gonna set the ground rules, like you're not doing that. But there were many times that I had to kind of take a step back. My wife helped me learn that. She said, "Listen, you need to take a step back and acknowledge that you messed up and just let them know that you messed up." And kids are resilient and kids are forgiving. And there were many a times that even to this day, there are many times that I've gone to my boys as grown men and go, "Hey, dude, I I wasn't in a good headspace when I said that to you. I shouldn't have acknowledged you that way, or I shouldn't have snapped at you in that tone. So I apologize. I will do my best not to let that happen again, and leave it at that. And it's like my boys now go, Dad, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal, you know. But it's so yeah, for dads out there that are struggling with that, acknowledging your mistakes, even when it comes to your spouse, going to your spouse is one of the hardest things to do too, is to go, look, dear, I messed up. I'm sorry. And I hope that you can forgive me, and I will do everything in my power not to let that happen again. And if you can learn that, it can go a long way with kids and raise and how you raise your boys or your kids, I should say.
100%. And one step further is I also make sure my boys know that I'm always working on trying to be a better dad because I want them to know like I'm always trying to grow. I'm a lifelong learner. I want them to know that too. And so I tell them like, hey, daddy is working on his tone of voice. So if you think my tone of voice is bad or off, like I want you to tell me so that I can work, we can work on it together. And then like maybe there's something that one of my sons is working on and we talk about that too. And that comes with repair because then if I do raise my voice in a context where I shouldn't, which definitely happens, and they call me out on it, I can very easily apologize and repair and say, "Hey, you're right. That was totally off of me. Thank you. I'm going to try to do better next time." And so I bring them into my own education and they love it. That empowers them, but it also makes them see like daddy makes mistakes. That doesn't change their love for me at all. And I think, in
Right.
fact, it makes it greater, right? Because if you have to live on a white horse your whole life as a father, that's going to be pretty impossible and exhausting. And better that our kids empathize and grow with us. And that's a big part of our family culture as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of I'm going to give you a tip. Something that I've done with my dads. It's been a homework assignment that I've given them many times. This can go on forever that you can ask them these kind of questions throughout their whole lives. But one of the things that you could go to your boys, especially at their ages now, just ask them, hey, what can I do better as a dad for you? And your little one might say, well, I'd appreciate it if you would give me ice cream instead of, dinner
Yes, that's
first.
exactly what he would
Yeah.
say.
So those kind of things, there is an age thing there, but as they get older,
Yeah.
and as they grow up, especially as they hit the stages of their lives that they go through, the preteens and the teens and the pre-adult and all that kind of stuff, you ask them, what can I do to improve as a dad? And then the second thing that I tell the dads that I've worked with is do the same thing with your spouse. What can I do to improve as a dad for our kids? And let them tell you. And you'll be amazed at how honest your kids and your spouse will be. And it may not hit you the right way. It may be something where it hits you in the gut and you go, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. But it's a powerful tool. It's a powerful technique that you can implement into your family. And I'm talking to Jeff, but I'm talking to all my viewers. It's a powerful tool that you can utilize to help you grow as a dad and be ready for that answer. Whatever that answer is, be ready for it and acknowledge it. It's something that I did with my boys, and it's just a little tip for you, Jeff, if you
No,
want to implement
I
that.
love it. And there's a framework a couple of my dads that I've been working with love to use, and they stole it from work setting and they apply it at home, and it's called stop, start, continue. So what is one thing, you ask your kids, what is one thing you want me to stop doing? What is one thing you want me to start doing? And what is one thing that you already like enjoy and appreciate and want me to continue doing?
No, I love that.
And that's a pretty good framework too, because that obviously gets them thinking about positive stuff as well as the stuff they want you to do a little bit less of. So that's really cool. And again, it's stolen from a business context, which makes total sense.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, listen, let me ask you this. What do you got new coming up, going on? What are you looking forward to? Any of those kind of things? And then also, for my viewers, listeners, I want to look you up, learn a little bit more about you. Where's the best places for them to do that?
Yeah, well, lots of stuff. So one, as we mentioned, I've got a podcast, Ambitious Dad's Podcast, so come check it out. Also, if you want any insight from the work that I've been doing in the research, or interested in one of our group programs, just check out ambitiousdads.com. You can find ways to get in touch with me there, and all about the programs and all the writing that I've done. And I also have a workshop coming up May 20th. And you'll be able to find that on ambitiousdads.com and via my podcast as well. So yeah, those are the best ways to reach out.
Awesome. Well, listen, Jeff, I appreciate you being on, brother. Thank you very much for, it's late for you over there in Spain, but I appreciate you staying up so you can join me in this conversation. It was really a lot of fun. I feel like we're next door neighbors, and I also feel like we could have carried this conversation on for hours. So appreciate you being on, my friend.
Without a doubt. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Listen, guys, this has been another episode of Dad Up. I want to thank my good friend Jeff Hittner for being on. Make sure you guys check out his podcast, his website. All the links are in the show notes below, so you can do that. Subscribe to his podcast so you can check out what he's doing. And then also, if you are not yet subscribed to my podcast, please make sure you do that. You can go on YouTube. I'm everywhere. You know where to find me. You guys know where to find me. But anyways, make sure you guys do that for both of our podcasts. It would be greatly appreciated. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at Dad Up Podcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.